Hey everyone, so the goal of this video and then the future ones is to give you guidelines about the paper and then on the latter part the different assignments with the paper. So the biggest thing to note about this paper is that it's not a purely research paper. Now what that means is that your job is not to research a topic but to test some hypothesis, test some theory. In order to do that, you need to use data. So the one thing you're going to hear me say time and time again throughout the semester is that this is a data-driven empirical paper. So what you need to do with this paper is you need to come up with some sort of a hypothesis, something that you want to teach, that you want to test. And using data, you need to test that hypothesis. And when I say test a hypothesis, I don't mean pull together information from work that others did and then come up to your conclusion based on that. Instead, your goal is to actually take data, look at it, see what it's telling you, and come to a conclusion based off of that. So there's a very, very big distinction between a research paper, which is when you're pulling together the work of others, and this paper, which is an empirical paper, where you're coming to your own conclusions based on your own analysis of data. So this paper should be roughly 10 to 15 pages, and it should describe some sort of health economics topic. So when I say health economics topic, this doesn't mean a health issue with economics to it. So you're not to talk about why spending a lot of money on fast food is bad for you. So the best way to do this is to actually look at the book, look at the topics we're covering, and think about and get ideas from that, because the basic theory should be embedded in one of those theories that we're going to discuss in the course. So again, 10 to 15 pages, and that is 10 to 15 written pages. That's after you take out the bibliography, title page, graphs, charts, all that. As far as the data analysis, you can use programs like Stata, SPSS, eViews, or Excel. But you don't need to use the more advanced one. So just using Excel, forming graphs on there and using that's an okay way to do it. You're to follow the APA format for bibliographies. Right. Now, when you're coming up with a topic, the first question there's two questions you need to ask yourself. The first is, what health economics issue will I be testing? Now again, you're not simply researching, but you're testing something. You're answering some health economics question. The second question to ask is, what data will I be using to test the hypothesis and how will I be using? Now the data needs to be the central part of your paper. So maybe a third of your paper will be background information discussing the work of others, but the rest of it is going to be your own analysis of data. So early on in the process, you want to make sure that you are able to find data. You need to make sure that the data is out there and you can test it. So your paper should have three main points. The first is some hypothesis about a health economics issue. This should be set up early in the paper, and you're spending the entire paper testing it. Second, some background information about the topic. This is the extent of where you will discuss the work of others. Now the third part, which is to be the bulk of your paper, is data analysis, your own data analysis that you're using to test the hypothesis. So again, this should be your own analysis, coming to your own conclusions, and not finding what others did and summarizing it. Because again, that's a research paper. And so, for examples of papers written by undergraduates, I put a link here. And let me see if I can come up here. So the Undergraduate Economic Review is a really good resource to use, just to give you a basic idea. And if you looked at some of just to get an idea, looking at some of the papers that have been published, it can give you an idea of how to approach this type of paper. Some resources. The Writing Center, for one. I recommend you go there. They can help you find with research. They can help you with citation or proofreading, so forth. Some other useful links. First is the Purdue Owl. So Purdue has a great website which really helps you to learn how to write things like a abstract, how to cite properly using APA format, which is required, how to form your annotated bibliography or your outline, and so forth. Now, the other sources are ways to look at possibilities for some data. So you have the Social Science Data Library, which is offered by Temple. They have a lot of good data there that you can use. Census.gov is another place, and data.World Bank. So I will talk about that a little more in the data analysis assignment. So as far as the paper milestone dates, you can see it here. It's due on Sunday. For all these, you are to go into Canvas, type it out in a Word document, and then attach a file within the actual folder for it. Right. So we have all these, you go through. Now, as far as the grading goes for the initial assignments, it's basically a did you do it and did you do it properly. And so because there's going to be a lot of tweaking along the way, the hypothesis, abstract, data description, theoretical background, all that, the main goal of these is for you to get my feedback. So the end result of all this is to get to the final draft and know exactly what I'm looking for. The best way for you to do that is to submit everything and get my feedback on it. By doing this, you'll find out what I want. If you're going in the wrong direction, I can point you back where you need to go. And for the most part, people who do the assignments and follow my take my feedback tend to do the best on these papers. Now, the 20 points for these initial assignments, if you do it and you follow the directions, you'll get the full credit for it. Right. So if you do all these and just follow the directions, you will get the points. Where people tend to make or break their grade is if they do or don't do these. Because this can either be 20 easy points or points that you're losing because you just didn't do it. So, again, with the exception of the final draft, all these points are going to be if you follow the directions, okay, you're fine. If you are doing something wrong or you go in the wrong direction, you won't be penalized there. I'll tell you what you did wrong and try to tell you how to fix it. So, again, the biggest thing to do with this is make sure you submit everything. Make sure you keep up with it. A lot of people, they don't follow it, and then they get to the end and they end up being scrambling because they haven't been following these steps. If you follow these steps, A, you'll get the points, but more importantly, B, you'll be properly prepared to write that final draft, and when you do that, it should be smooth sailing. You know exactly what I'm looking for. So that's a broad overview of the paper. In the next videos, I'm going to start to talk about each of these individual assignments, what I'm looking for, what you can do, and some tips, so forth. So you can either look through them all at once and then come back to them, or as you're doing the assignments, you can come back and look at them then. But in general, this should give you a broad overview of the paper and what I'm looking for.